right. I will call this meeting to order for April 15th at 6:02 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. And I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have one set of minutes from March the 18th. I'm looking for a motion to adopt. Moved by Councillor Day. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have public participation, so now is the opportunity to comment on tonight's agenda items. You will also have the opportunity to comment on the agenda item as it's presented to the public and to committee. So if there's anyone who wants to address committee, Jason.
Hi. Jason Nault, 274 Belmont Road. First, I want to comment that the agenda, both as presented and on the public website, has two items with no information whatsoever on them. Item 5.1, which is a presentation, and item 7.1, which is Advisory Planning Commission update. I would urge the city to have actual reports available with each agenda, because if you're trying to find something out on the website, I have no idea what this is about. Second, I want to encourage the committee to consider very seriously the changing of the leash bylaws along the lagoon. I have been down there numerous times and had dogs running off leash on both sides of the lagoon. Very recently I was down there and there was a dog being played with. Owner was throwing a stick into the lagoon side. Dog was chasing it. Off leash, of course. Two Canadian Wildlife Service employees were sitting there watching this. And I asked them, why don't you inform this man that this is a bird sanctuary? This is not legal. He said, well, there's not adequate signage. So the Canadian Wildlife Service doesn't seem to be willing to enforce its own regulations. I'm wondering where Colwood is going to get with this. I've lived in Colwood for 27, 28 years now. I have never seen a bylaw officer on the beach or anywhere else in Colwood enforcing our on-leash, off-leash rules. For the benefit of those in the audience who might not know, all of Colwood is off-leash with the exception of the bird sanctuary, which doesn't seem to be enforced. Royal Roads University campus is entirely on-leash, which doesn't seem to be enforced. The CRD controls the Galloping Goose Trail, which is on-leash. It doesn't seem to be enforced. And the school district has all of its school grounds off bounds to any dogs, and that's not enforced. So one more bylaw without enforcement I don't think is going to do anything. I think I agree with the idea of making the whole lagoon an on-leash area. It's probably good for the bird sanctuary, but without proper enforcement, it's window dressing. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone else? Judith?
Judith Pollington, 3338 Acemink, and President of the Wonderfecal Performing Arts Centre Society. I am here with an invitation for you all. Let you know, and everybody in the audience, that there is an upcoming event on Thursday, May 9th, which is the Carnival of the Animals. It's put on by PJ Music School, so all local kids doing fabulous stuff. And you now have an invitation in front of you. The tickets are a princely sum of $20 a piece. Proceeds will go to support the Wonderfecal Performing Arts Centre Society. So if you are not able to attend, and we hope that you are, please feel free to share this with somebody who would like to attend. And I think there are a few extra copies going around for staff and anybody else who would like to participate. So, thank you. And I do have a comment on the off-leash bylaw, but I'll wait until the agenda item.
Certainly. Great, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to address the committee before we move on? No?
I'm Judy Nault, 274 Belmont Road. And I would also like to address the proposal to extend the dog on leash area along the Esquimalt Lagoon Migratory Bird Sanctuary. As most of us are aware, this area is an important resting and feeding sanctuary for migrating birds to and from all parts of British Columbia. It also supports diverse land and marine ecosystems, housing amphibians, mammals, invertebrates, and insects. The Lagoon Sanctuary is important for urban wildlife, but also for us as urban dwellers. We are so fortunate to have this place to enjoy the beauty and diversity of the natural environment. The lagoon is an incredible and accessible place for children of all ages to learn how to interact with nature in a way that is beneficial for all. The December discussion on this topic showed a disturbing disregard for Council's stewardship responsibility for this important environmental feature. And I hope that hearts and minds have changed since then, and that this council will protect and improve the legacy of nature that has been given to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. I'm not seeing any further people coming up to the mic, so we will move on. Under presentation, something I've been looking forward to is a presentation from Carol Brown on behalf of the Friends of Havenwood Park. And the Friends, for those of you that are unaware, the Friends of Havenwood Park are a community volunteer group that helps to preserve the natural environmental features of Havenwood Park by raising community awareness through ecological restoration events, park walks, and other activities that connect people with nature. Their work extends the resources available through the City of Colwood and assists the Habitat Acquisition Trust to conserve the natural amenities of the park. Carol.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't think I need to say too much more now. No, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here this evening, myself and Dave Petrie. We're very happy to be maybe telling you a little bit about Havenwood Park that you don't already know, and a little bit about the Friends of Havenwood Park. So we have a little bit of a slideshow, PowerPoint, coming soon. This is, it was on. It's something about me and technology. Mm-hmm. I brought my laptop, if that's of any help, with it on it. And I have the flash drive, if that's any help. It's here. I can't see mine, but it was up there earlier. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance I could look at that to see where and when to click? Okay. Great. Okay. All right. See if I can do this. All this. So, under the City of Colwood zoning, Havenwood Park is defined as a park devoted to the retention, preservation, and enhancement of natural, historic, or landscape features, and is used primarily for informal or passive recreational purposes. It is a park of 16.5 hectares, or 50 acres, with moderate to steeply sloped hillsides. The audience can't see anything then, eh? Is that right? Unfortunate. Outcropped Garry Oak ecosystems are part of this. Wetland and riparian habitats, permanent and semi-permanent watercourses, and a healthy cover of second growth coniferous and deciduous trees. Two of the covenant holders of this magnificent park are Habitat Acquisition Trust and the City of Colwood. The city produced the Havenwood Park Management Plan, which is this, I have a copy of it here, and provides the following goals based on the vision statement of the park. Number 1, conserve the natural amenities of the park, provide the park infrastructure and facilities necessary to support passive public recreation and enjoyment. Establish a management structure and procedures that help achieve the above goals. Recommendation number 32 of this Havenwood Park Management Plan states that the City of Colwood support and encourage the formation of a community-based Friends of Havenwood Park, a group to work with the city in the management, development, and education of the public for Havenwood Park, and a representative of the group might sit on the management committee. This is where we come in. Friends of Havenwood Park Community Volunteer Group has been formed to help extend local government resources and assist Habitat Acquisition Trust and the city in conserving the natural amenities of the park through 1, work parties, public education, park hosts, and stewardship. Here are further slides of our beautiful park and some of the activities of Friends of Havenwood Park. We have been involved in restoration, education, and stewardship. The very first graduating class at Royal Bay became quite involved in planting trees in a special corner of the park. And there's Gord Beauvillier helping out. These are new to the park, infrastructure, crosswalk. This is the north side. And the view from the top. Dave would like to say a few words now.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council and staff, I, along with Carol and Judy Nolt, and the Friends of Havenwood Park, would like to continue to thank you for the support that you've given to us, to the park, and to the citizens of Colwood, and indeed to Greater Victoria. So in my professional life, I was really influenced by a gentleman named Martin Brokenleg. And his claim to fame was his advocacy for Indigenous youth. And he influenced so much of the work that we did in the Greater Victoria School District. One of the things that struck me so powerfully was a statement that he made. His mantra was to create a place of caring and belonging. And over time, I kind of adopted that as a creed to govern. I'm relatively new in Colwood, meaning I'm in my 7th year as a member of the Colwood community, and I'm developing a strong sense that that's the way Colwood tries to operate, by creating a sense of place, care, and belonging. So part of what we'd like to do tonight as the Friends of Havenwood Park is to acknowledge that work, your work. And Here is how you specifically support us. You've recognized that we exist, and you've done that through volunteer recognition and opportunities like this tonight to get to know us more. We'd especially like to acknowledge the Parks crew for its outstanding work in completing what we call the grunt work that they do to remove the biomass that we generate. And I've speculated that over the time that we've been doing this, which is 3 to 4 years, your crews have removed in excess of 100 truckloads of biomass. Easily. I call that SWARF. Therefore, a special mention needs to be given to Gord Beauvillier, who is our immediate contact person and who is there with and for us, as indeed the crews are. We'd also like to recognize your support for the Habitat Acquisition Trust, or HAT as it's known, because what we understand is through a budget line item, you've made a commitment for 5 years to support the work that they do to support the park. And indeed, also, you support the Green Team. That is a Greater Victoria kind of endeavor, and very specifically, they organize large group events in the park where we do invasive species removal. So, of course, when we get larger groups, we have larger impact. And that can't be done without your support. And as Carol has indicated, you've developed a management plan that gives vision and direction to the park. Havenwood Park is really a jewel. When I moved out here in 2012, I was right on the bottom of the southern slope. Havenwood Park was my backyard. We had two yellow lab dogs. They needed to be walked every day. We walked the park every single day, bottom to top. Fantastic. So I'd urge you, if you've never been, you gotta go. Especially urge you to consider going now, because now is one of the most fantastic times to be in the park. We, at one point in our efforts on this, what we call the southern slope of the mountain, so if you know where I call them the donkey stairs are, those are the stairs that lead to the top. Rather rigorous walk, but well worth it. When you get to the top of those stairs, turn left, you'll find yourself at the peak, one of the peaks of Triangle Mountain, and you get a magnificent view of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, unparalleled. When we first discovered that slope was a massive broom. So we targeted it. And now, today, it is a most incredible and fantastic meadow that is just filled with camas, sea blush. I can't even remember the names of all the plants.
White fawn lily, camas, yellow spring gold.
It's stunning. It'll take your breath away. And it's well worth the walk, believe me. So, Havenwood Park is truly a jewel. And in this day and age, when nature is so much at the forefront, the care that we give to it will obviously be given back to us as well. So again, I urge you, take the time. Since we've been keeping records of our work in the park, just by way of reporting through to HAT so that we can continue to build momentum, etc., this is what I discovered when I reviewed that this afternoon. In the past 3 years, we've had 111 work days performed by 194 people who've amassed 1,164 combined hours of work. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe it's contributed to 100 plus truckloads of invasives being removed from the park. So in closing, we have a few asks of you. As you would expect. The first one would be, please continue to support HAT in the manner in which you are doing so. We need their support, and they give it to us. Continue to support the Green Team in the manner in which you are. They support us. We all benefit from the work that the Green Team does. And consider updating the management plan, bringing it to today's current levels, because it will be an incredibly useful process, not just a document, a process by which we can continue to go forward. And most importantly, we thank you for what you do. Please keep doing it. Thanks.
So Dave, Carol, and Judy, and the rest of the team, the work that you do is nothing short of amazing. It is phenomenal, and I was on council when we acquired the park a number of years ago, and it's amazing to see how it's flourished thanks to the work that you've done and the passion. And so that would be my ask, is to continue that work, and we will support you in doing that work. So with that. Oh yeah, timing's everything. So before we come to committee, I just want to give anybody in the audience an opportunity to ask a question of your group. Seeing none, committee, do you have any questions or comments? Seeing none? Yes. Thank you very much. And I do apologize that you may not have been able to see the presentation. Staff is aware of the issue with that screen, so we're going to get something on it. And hopefully we can possibly put this presentation on the website for viewing. So thank you very much. So we'll move right into old business. And we've got a report from the Director of Long Range Planning and Sustainability and the Manager of Building and Bylaw Services. And this is, committee might remember that this is a report to follow up to a staff report presented to Committee of the Whole back on December the 3rd, 2018, regarding a proposed amendment to the Animal Control Bylaw. And so I'll turn it into Mr. Borhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, this is a opportunity for us to revisit this issue that came before the committee in December. Staff, at the request of the committee, have tried to bring some clarity to jurisdictional issues at the lagoon. Unfortunately, we weren't able to develop a consensus between Canadian Wildlife Service staff and the municipal solicitors with respect to where the boundary actually lies for the migratory bird sanctuary. Canadian Wildlife Service staff put forward the opinion that it extends out into the foreshore along the Cobourg Peninsula. But as best as we can understand the regulations flowing from the Migratory Bird Act, is that the most likely definition to be upheld by a judge, if it was challenged, would be the high water mark along Cobourg Peninsula. So we don't necessarily have a clear understanding where that boundary lies, but our best guess is if it was brought before a judge, they would be looking at the high water mark. That would actually align with what's currently in the Animal Control Bylaw as to where the on-leash and off-leash line sits. I'll also mention, as stated in the staff report, that Council can set the line for the on-leash area wherever it chooses. The only situation where the city would run afoul of the regulations for the bird sanctuary would be if we said dogs must be off-leash within the sanctuary, which I don't think is being contemplated. And then lastly, with respect to jurisdiction, the city doesn't have a legal obligation to enforce the rules of the migratory bird sanctuary, just our bylaws. That being said, staff highlight the benefits of extending the boundary as proposed out to the municipal boundary, which include greater enforceability and the potential to reduce dog-related conflict at Cobourg Peninsula. Therefore, we're reiterating our previous recommendation to extend the on-leash area along Cobourg Peninsula out to the municipal boundary, which is well past the low water mark, so there'll be no ambiguity as to where a dog should be on leash. And that we also coordinate with the Canadian Wildlife Service to improve interpretive and regulatory signage at Cobourg Peninsula. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And with that, I will open it up to the public for any questions or comments on this particular subject. Judith.
I think everybody else spoke already, so I think it's me. So, Judith Collington, 3338 Acemink. I am a dog lover. I've been a dog lover all my life. I don't currently have a dog, but I used to thoroughly enjoy walking along the lagoon. We are very lucky to have that area. It is something that is of national and international significance, and I think it behooves us to look after it as best that we can as an organisation. I'm going to disagree with former Councillor Nault in his comment. I have seen bylaw officers down there enforcing the bylaw, and they used to enforce it. I haven't been down as much recently, but they used to enforce it very well, particularly on the lagoon side, because there was real clarity around this is an area where dogs should be on leash, and there's signage to support it, and people seem to kind of get the message, and mostly when you look, people on the lagoon side are walking on leash or walking their dogs on leash. And there's also that business where sort of people encourage each other. So, somebody will, I've certainly more than once said to somebody, hey, did you know this is an on-leash area? And they've been very respectful and said, oh, sorry, didn't realize, and put their dog on the leash. So where there's clarity, it does work. I think we need to extend that clarity to the marine side. And as Mr. Borhill suggested, I think moving that line to the municipal boundary would help in that clarity. It would certainly provide much greater certainty when bylaw are down there, and for others who are kind of helping to do that information. I would encourage you not to support the staff recommendation, which is to receive the report for information. I would encourage you to look at the staff recommendation and act on both of those pieces in there, both amending the boundary and so that we can actually enforce that area, but also work with the Canadian Wildlife Service for the development and installation of the interpretive and regulatory signage. I think that would be a real plus for our city. We are very good. There are lots of places in Colwood where you can walk your dog off leash. There's a whole area south of the washroom where you can walk your dog off leash. It's a wonderful thing to do, to go play with your dog in the water and all of those good things. But both in terms of the bird life that we have at the Migratory Bird Sanctuary, but also in terms of the people. How many times have you seen families having a marvelous time on the beach during the summer, and the kids are digging in the sand, and oh, look at what they just dug up. Because when your dog's off leash, it's harder to notice where your dog is doing its business, and so you can end up with those lovely little presents in the sand. And there are also a number of people who aren't comfortable with dogs. And so I think from the people point of view, as well as for the wildlife that's down there, I think it's a really good idea to create that off-leash area. We're encouraging people down to the lagoon. We're doing things like Eats and Beats. Let's make it a really family-friendly place for them to go. So that's my 10 cents. I would encourage you to adopt the recommendations, not just receive the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason.
Jason Nault again. Just a further comment on that. I fully support extending the area because there are migratory birds on both sides of the spit, and they're not necessarily the same species. So if you're interested in protecting it as a migratory bird sanctuary, both sides have to be protected from intrusion by dogs. So please consider that as you consider the changes to the bylaw.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to comment on the subject before I bring it back to committee? Seeing none, committee. Councillor Day and then Councillor Kobiaszki.
Thank you. I would like to start with moving the recommendation, including 1 and 2. And I'll give my reasons. I think that in terms of dogs being on leash, it is critically important. We are an internationally important area for wildlife. This is the southern tip of Vancouver Island is a jumping off point for migration. I have a very small dog. And when we travel around, we go on lots of walks and hikes. And there are very few beaches like ours where dogs are allowed off leash. There are some that allow it in the winter months, but none who have that competing problem of people trying to enjoy the beach and dogs on the beach, even on leash. So even amending our regulations this amount is creating a better environment for families who want to come down and enjoy the beach. Of course, because of our wonderful weather, it's a great time to come almost any time of the year. And my reason, especially for wanting dogs to be on leash, is the number of, what's the best way to say it, negative interactions with dogs, like where, there's a dog fight or a dog goes after a person. Those have been particularly located at the beach. So I think it's important that we make it a safe space. We still do allow for some off-leash play area. It isn't like you can never do that again sort of thing. It's just really defining where that should be and making it very predictable. So I think this will be good for people.
Thank you, Councillor Day. So just to clarify for the public, Councillor Day moved that the animal control bylaw be amended to require all dogs to be on leash between the southeast boundary of the bird sanctuary and the municipal boundary, and that the city coordinate with the Canadian Wildlife for the development and installation of interpretive and regulatory signage at the Esquimalt Lagoon. We have Councillor Kobayashi and then Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. I do support the recommendation also. I personally, I'm personally in the same frame of mind as Mr. Nault as far as enforcement goes. This is what the issue is down there. I mean, we don't work 7 days a week down there. And unfortunately, most of the incidents that happen are on weekends. That's when you have most of the people down there, Saturdays and Sundays, believe me, because it cost me $600 because my dog was attacked because she was on a leash and some other person's dog was not on a leash. So I can personally tell you I have all kinds of problems with this in the fact that if we're not going to enforce it, then why are we going to have it? So I'm really big on this enforcement. You've got to enforce it, and you have to have consequences. Otherwise, this is another waste of our time. We're just keep on passing bylaws, and using staff time. And if we're going to have these bylaws, let's enforce them. So it's more of a comment right now that maybe it requires an amendment that we do need to enforce these because they're just useless otherwise. But I'm telling you right now, it is, if you look at the traffic down on the lagoon and when people are down there, it's the Saturdays and Sundays. And that's when most of those dogs are out running around. So, like I said, I support this with the caveat that we got to enforce it. And that's not looked at so far. So, that's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter and then Councillor Jansen.
It's always on when it should be off. There are a further at least 2 kilometers of beach for off-leash walking of dogs to the south. While parts of that beach may be inaccessible at high tide, there are still dog walking areas there, I believe, even at high tide. And so the dog walkers are not losing a place for off-leash walking, plus they can still walk with dogs on leash on the peninsula, so they still retain access to the whole area.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear what Councillor Kobayashi has to say, and I think that once we sort out this bylaw, then we can certainly turn our mind to what enforcement looks like. And it hasn't been mentioned here, but we contract that service out, and we do have some room for discussion with animal control, CRD animal control, as far as what kind of service level that we would be looking for. So I think that's, once we've moved this to council and move forward with the bylaw amendments, then I would suggest that we connect and we add it to an agenda, that we connect with animal control.
Thank you. Mr. Borhill, you had a comment.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to mention to the committee that we do have some information with respect to enforcement if committee would like me to share.
Sure.
I've got, as was mentioned, we do contract animal control services to the CRD. Our current contract, which expires at the end of this year, but has provisions to automatically renew for the next 2 years, calls for an average of 75 hours, patrol hours in the city of Colwood for animal control, including a minimum of 150 hours annually dedicated to patrols of parks and high volume dog use areas. So we've got our statistics as reported by the CRD Animal Control, stating that in 2018, there was just under 180 hours dedicated to patrols at Esquimalt Lagoon. And in the first 3 months ending in March of this year, there were 43 hours of patrols at the lagoon. So I just want to add that.
Thank you. I haven't seen any additional hands, so I will call the question on the motion that's on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Under new... Huh? It's a very enthusiastic carry. Thank you. Certainly.
So I would just like to request that at a future committee, we have CRD Animal Control come and have them present to us about where they are. We used to have them come to the Parks Committee, so we could certainly have them come to Committee of the Whole.
Great. I see the CAO shaking his head up and down, so that'll be... Yes, thank you. Thank you. Excellent suggestion. So we'll move on to item number 7 under new business, and it's Councillor Parkinson's going to provide us an update on the APC. Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship. I guess since we've been involved, or at least since us new guys have been involved, there's been talk about committees and what's the optimum way to deal with committees and what should we do and what should we not do. I think there's also been a sort of an underlying wish that we want to have a very high standard of development here in Colwood, and we want to make sure that our processes reflect that we don't mind demanding a lot from people who want to do things in Colwood, but we want to provide some efficiencies and a good process for them. And so there's been a number of discussions that I've been involved with about the APC. And you know, what I'm saying here tonight is my thoughts and my words. I'll let others speak at the appropriate time on this. But it's just, I think it is time to maybe think a little bit about APC and what's the optimum way to do it. Maybe we have nailed it. Maybe we haven't. When I sort of think about it a little bit, you know, as far as the existing members of the APC go, it's a 9-member committee which requires attendance. And some of these meetings don't last all that long, but once per month. We have had difficulties keeping the 9 members, getting quorum, and if not much is on the agenda, you wonder about the time spent preparing, getting to and attending, and for some minor matters. It may be a big ask. As far as proponents go, obviously they need to prepare and attend at the APC, but then they're also going to come and attend the Committee of the Whole and possibly Council. I think a lot of them see it as just another step in the process. It might be seen as overly time-consuming as they wait for the reports to be prepared and the scheduled meeting of the APC, attend the APC, and then they follow and wait for suitable time to present to the Committee of the Whole and Council. So it's a process, and you know, I'm not here to say it's awful, but it is a process. Staff have to prepare for and attend APC meetings. They have to create the minutes and move them forward to the next appropriate venue. Obviously have to address issues and questions from both APC and Council, so it's perhaps additional workload for them. The public looks at attending the APC and then again at Committee of the Whole and Council perhaps. There's probably some confusion about what to say to which body. Do points need to be made twice? If you go to one, is that sufficient? Or, you know, if the ruling at APC is their liking, can they relax and not attend the Committee of the Whole? I think there's probably some debate and confusion. Council, we get minutes of APC, and of course they can't replicate exactly what was said in the debate that happened. Michael and I are attending APCs as we've been asked to do by the mayor, and we can perhaps flesh out a little bit, but it's, again, it's secondhand. And I wonder, because already in my short time here, there's been times where the APC has considered and made recommendations. We've asked them for their time and their thoughts, and yet we don't follow the recommendations. And, you sort of wonder, obviously wouldn't be perfect. And then, obviously, again, we can't ignore the fact that we definitely want public input. Small issues may be more time-consuming for staff and APC members than warranted. Large issues may be deserving more review and scrutiny than what's happening now. I'm not sure on that. And I'm told, maybe there's options, maybe there's other things to do. I guess at this point, I'm just thinking it's worthy of consideration. What are we going to do? And my coaching is that the best way to start this process is to ask the staff to maybe bring forward a report on where we stand now with APC and what our options might be for going forward. So I'd like to make that recommendation.
So thank you, Councillor Parkinson. So with that, we'll just open it up to the public for a few comments or questions, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the committee. Seeing none, committee. Michael, you're the other participant on the APC. I'd like to give you a first crack.
I'd actually like to see this motion defeated. Sorry, Stuart. Because I think the first step is that we as a council need to understand amongst ourselves and communicate to staff what it is we want out of any kind of planning committee that might exist. I don't think we have an agreed definition of what it is we want. So our staff are brilliant, but I don't think they can produce a report with recommendations that we're going to be happy with if they don't know what we're looking for.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I don't think there's necessarily a perfect process. There's definitely going to be times when whatever process you pick, it's not going to give you necessarily everything that you need. What I have seen happen, and I've lived here for far too long. I've been here more than 30 years, and in that 30 years that I've lived in Colwood, I have participated in public engagements. Members of my family have been on the Advisory Planning Committee. I've been on committees that when we didn't have the Advisory Planning Committee, we had other committees that provided input. And I think most importantly, we want to ensure that whether or not we agree with the ultimate recommendation, we need to know that all considerations for a development that's coming forward has been considered and was available to the public. So for me, I appreciate that we have lots of very talented individuals in our community who have specific knowledge in specific areas, who may be able to provide input to us that we wouldn't otherwise have. But even more important than that is that the community has an opportunity, and more than just one opportunity maybe, to hear about what's coming so that they're really well informed. And then we don't, have to wait until the very end and, but did you think about, and have that derail the process. So whatever process we do, it needs to, I think, be very inclusive of all points of view and ensure that we don't sweep anything under the rug. sometimes it's not comfortable to talk about some impacts.
Thank you. I just want to recognize our CAO, Mr. Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The problem isn't so much with how the committee is structured or anything like that. The problem is we can't get quorum most of the time. So in fact, it doesn't perform the function it should perform. So there's a fundamental problem. Either there's something wrong with the terms of reference, or people are not interested enough. And I would like to remind Council that it did create Committee of the Whole that does give the general public a very good venue for all of Council to hear what the views are from the community. So I think there's a question about whether this committee should continue. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a question too, based on the table that, or the question that the motion that Councillor Parkinson has put on the table. Does staff have clarity in terms of what the expectations and the intentions of this report back to committee are? I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Brent?
Thanks very much. I believe that staff do have a direction as to what this committee is supposed to do. However, at the commencement and startup of the committee, as I understand it, it was to get an iterative process that was to provide the feedback to council. And through the several meetings that I've been involved with, what I've actually found is that the public is unclear on how and when they're reaching council. Is this their step forward to council? Is this not their step to council? Has all my voice been heard? Do I have to go speak again? Or the sort of questions that I come about. So as I understand it, the committee is supposed to bring their individual expertise to review the project at hand, which is not council's expertise as they may question and query the project. I agree, though, that it does provide that extra information from the specific disciplines that are represented at the APC.
So what I'm asking, Brent, is Councillor Parkinson tabled a motion wanting a report on more information about the APC. So I just want to make sure that you have, you're clear on the motion and the intent and what Councillor Parkinson's ask is.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask for clarity.
Yeah.
I do believe I'm clear. To reiterate, we're providing a framework on the success or the failures of the APC as it's been vetted since its incorporation. And then the potential solution for the best way to reach the public, hearing the fact that we'd like multiple points of engagement, and the best way to provide the most informed decision back to staff and back to that development community. Am I correct on that?
Is that okay? Perfect. No, that's good. Quite often we're good at making a motion for a staff report, and it's like just exactly where you asked for. So I want to make sure you're clear. So that's good. First time speakers, Mayor Martin.
So I'm going to be in favor of the motion. I think we do need something. One of my concerns and one of the things that I've witnessed through APC has been, and it's a human nature issue, but it's a matter of justifying your own time. So you'll have one line item that you're dealing with, and so the staff spend a lot of time. They write the report, they do all that, and people don't want to just show up and go, yeah, that's a good report. And so what happens is they end up finding reasons in that report to justify it or justify why they're against it or that. And that's not a criticism of the APC. That's what happens is that's human nature because you invest so much energy and so much time. You don't want to feel like you're wasting the city's time and everything by not saying anything if you've got a good report. APC, I just do not believe is functioning the way it should be functioning right now, and I sincerely support the idea that staff should come back and tell us how we can make it better.
Any first-time speakers? Any other? No? Michael.
I note that we're saying that APC is not functioning the way we want it to function, without ever having defined to us or them how we want it to function. However, with that clarification from Brent on what's in the report, I would support the motion.
Thank you. Amanda, do you know what you've got the motion? Or are you? Pardon? Okay. Stuart, can you repeat that?
You know I'm no good at this. I could ask Brent to repeat it. Just maybe keep it simple that we would ask staff for a report on options for the function the APC currently serves.
And so staff's got some clarity on the intention of that. So that's good. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Day?
Thank you. And I just want to clarify, I think we need to be really clear what we expect from the APC because, pardon me, part of the problem is the APC, I think, is there to review the report and look at all the implications of a particular initiative. And then they give it all that effort and tell you what they see as the upside and the downside. And then that comes to council, and council may prefer to move the project ahead or to not move it ahead. And they may be perceived to not be taking into account some of the points that are made at the APC. That has ever been the case with APCs. So that's not new, and it's not a failure of the committee if they present all the information and then the council decides to do something different. So I just wanted to be really clear about that they're reviewing it and looking and trying to give us a really good report card on what's good and what's not good about a development that's coming forward. And then it comes to our table and we make the political decision of whether that's a good or not a good idea.
Thank you. Having no further names, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to the final public participation now. If anyone has any. Jason.
Just a quick one. It's probably going to come up at our LC meeting next week, but for a number of years we've had an invasive species in British Columbia waters, the European green crab. Just recently, a number of volunteers in cooperation with, I think, the university and DFO did an experimental trap in the lagoon, and they actually caught one of these crabs, which is very bad news for local crabs and marine life. I believe they are working on or organizing an eradication trapping. So if you want to watch the minutes of the LC meeting, you'll probably get more details on that. But they have been gradually spreading. I think they've been found in Whitty's Lagoon and now in the Esquimalt Lagoon.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's, oh, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and councilors, my name is Bob Harris, and I live at 154 Milburn Drive, and I've lived there for over 25 years. And recently, to be exact, it was February the 9th, a tree across the road from our home came down in a storm and wiped out the neighbor's fence and power, and it stretched my power line right off the connector to my house. And it actually pulled it right from the box in the basement. So all that had to be redone. I had a bill for $1,498 from Houle Electric, which I thought was very fair. And the reason I'm here is because apparently it's a policy of the city of Colwood that there were no formal periodic inspections of boulevard trees, but rather response is complaint-based. Now, if this is a policy of the city of Colwood, I've been here for 25 years and this is the first I've heard of it. Can somebody here tell me when it was enacted?
What I would suggest, Mr. Harris, if you've got questions, I'm not sure that staff have that information on the tip of their tongues. However, they are more than willing to meet with you to answer your questions outside of this meeting to provide you a more fulsome answer. But we haven't got the answer right now for you.
Knows. Cynthia doesn't know?
No.
I don't know, but if you would like, I can take your number and I can get someone to get back to you with the answer.
I got a lot of call with City Hall phone numbers at home, cards. Just tell me who I have to talk to.
Actually, you can talk to that gentleman right behind you,
Okay,
and he'll be able to help you out, Bob.
thank you.
All right. With that, our next meeting is Monday, May the 6th at 6 p.m. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Kobayashi. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.